All right, continue where we left off with our elements of design. Again, these are our tools. So we're gonna go through each of them. You recognize them, but now we're talking about them in a design sense, so they get a little bit more complicated. So first, you start off with line. Line is a mark on a surface that describes a shape or outline. It can create texture and can be thick or thin. So basically, we use line to start to describe things. So I can describe it as a thick line, a thin line. I can describe the surface saying, oh, it has a straight line, a curved line. But your definition of line is right down here. Line is the mark made by a moving point. So when I tell you to draw a line on a piece of paper, you put your pencil down, that's your point, and then you move it. So it's a moving point. And it's the most basic component of a shape drawn on the paper. So it's important to know that lines have a purpose. When we're talking about these tools, we're not talking about when I ask for an example to give me a bunch of different lines. You have to show an example where the line is purposeful. So in this top picture, the lines make your eyes follow the landscaping, so you're looking at the whole yard instead of just looking at a piece. So it's following the curved lines. In the bottom picture, the lines of the boardwalk that lead out to the beach causes your eyes to start here and they follow to the horizon. So all the lines point to the same place. They all have a purpose. So you have to pick out the purpose of the element. Next, we have shapes. Shapes are a two-dimensional line with no form or thickness. They are flat and can be categorized into two things, geometric and organic, which you need to know. But you also, most importantly, need to know the definition, which is right here. Shape is an area enclosed by lines or curves. So if those lines do not connect, if it is not a closed figure, it is not considered a shape. That is just considered a line. So in order to be a shape, they must be closed. And you have two different types. Geometric, which are commonly used or known shapes. So all of these pictures, these little smiling shapes up here in the top picture, you know what they are. You can point to each one of them and tell a name, a star, triangle, square, circle, rectangle, heart. You know those shapes. So those are geometric because they have a name. These down here in the bottom picture, I could not tell you what type of shape they are. I could describe them. I could say they're a blob, but there is no name for them. That means they are organic. Organic are newly created shapes. And shapes leads us to form. Forms just add one more definition or one more dimension of depth to make it three-dimensional. So shapes have height and width. Now once you have form, it's three-dimensional and you have a depth. So form is a three-dimensional object having volume and thickness. They can be viewed from many angles. So because it has depth, now it's three-dimensional. You can view it from top, bottom, side, left, right. And they're enhanced by tone. So by the shading of something. And they're considered three-dimensional because they have, again, that height, width, and depth. So this picture on the right, we know it's drawn on a flat surface, two-dimensional, but it looks three-dimensional because they have the depth. You can see the chess pieces, the boat, and everything else. Next is space. Space is the empty or open area between, around, above, below, or within objects. So basically anywhere around an object. What is that empty or open space? There is positive or negative space, and you have to know the difference between them and what they each are. So positive space is filled by a shape. So when you are looking at this picture of the beach, the first thing your eyes should see are the chairs and umbrella. That means that is your focus of that image, and that is your positive space. So when you're taking pictures of yourself for your family or your friends, you want the picture to be of them. Yes, there is a background, but whatever you're taking the picture of is your positive space. Everything in the background surrounding it is your negative space. So all of this beach, ocean, sky, that's the negative space surrounding your object. And now you can start to see the connection between your elements and your principle. So the tool is having that space around it, but your principle you're following, the rule, is now emphasis because your positive space is your emphasis of what you first look at. Next, we have color. And color, we could go on days or days about color, but we're just going to stay on the very surface. We just want to know that color refers to specific hues and has three properties of chroma, intensity, and value. We're not going to go into each of those properties, just know those properties and hues relate back to color. But again, we're looking at color for a purpose. We're not looking at these elements just to say, oh, it's colorful. We're looking at it because each color has a purpose in an object. So think about the color red. what do you automatically associate with when you see red? Well, we think about danger, we think about anger. So things that insinuate danger and anger are red. So stop signs, they're red because if you don't stop, you could have a dangerous situation. The color blue is supposed to make you calm. So think about the ocean, the sky, it's all blue, it's making you calm. And this is all, again, subconsciously, you don't realize it, but this is just how our brain functions. Blue also kind of fade into the background where reds pop out at you, so it makes sense. If it's supposed to be dangerous, you want it to pop out at you so you know to avoid it. Where blue, if it's calming, it fades into the background, it calms you, it relaxes you. Another one is yellow, and now this is getting even more specific. Different shades of a color mean different things. Bright yellow means caution, whereas a pale yellow is supposed to be happiness. So children's hospitals are painted in a pale yellow because subconsciously it naturally relaxes the people inside of it, the parents, the children that have to be there, and makes them happier subconsciously. And then lastly, we have texture. And texture is just that visual feel or feeling of the object. So it's the degree of roughness or smoothness. You look at the top picture, is it rough or smooth? It's smooth. Look at the bottom picture, rough or smooth? Rough. So it's just that visual feel or the actual physical feeling of it. All right, so these are your elements and principles of design, along with overall what design is. So all very important. We're going to use all of this information starting a mini project next week. So make sure if you did not get any of the slides, you go back, fill in each of these. You must have this PowerPoint slide completed. Like I said, you're going to be turning it in. Turning it in on Haiku. So you want to complete it, turn it in right here, and then you're moving on to the midterm. I know the substitute has already told you, but please don't freak out about the midterm. The midterm, we've only covered 50% so far. This is the same test as your pretest. If your pretest wasn't a grade, so your midterm can't be a grade since that wouldn't be fair, only covering 50%. So I'm using it as your last extra credit boost that will be on a test this time instead of an assignment. So for every 10 points, you get an extra point on your lowest test, whether that was what we just took yesterday or another test. So get a 54, you get 5 points. Get a 70, you get 7 points. If you get 100, I will give you 100 on your test. So make sure you're utilizing what you know. We know 50% of it. Answer the questions you know correctly to get that extra credit. If you don't know it, we haven't covered it yet, more than likely. So take your best guess and move on. Don't just sit there and stare at something. So go to your main page, scroll to the bottom, right here, midterm. You can see it's open until 11:59 tonight. So you should be able to get it done in class, but if for whatever reason you have 10 questions left or whatnot at the end and you don't get it done, it is open until 11:59. So you have time tonight to go back and finish that and get it turned in. I want you to get as much extra credit points as possible. So take that midterm, turn it in, and have a great weekend.